Hello, everyone, and welcome to Career Convos, Breaking Barriers and Building Futures. My name is Anthony Hankerson, and I am thrilled to be here with you today from WGU's Career and Professional Development team. We're incredibly excited for our session today titled Embracing Growth, Change, and New Opportunities. And to lead us through this insightful discussion, we have our special guest, Stella Enhancho. Stella is a global recognized agile transformation leader and award-winning speaker and dedicated career and leadership coach. She is passionate about empowering professionals and organizations to navigate change, build high-performance teams, and achieve sustainable success. With over a decade of experience, Stella currently leads enterprise agile transformations with the data and AI organizations at Red Hat. Furthermore, she has equipped hundreds of professionals with skills to transition into agile careers through her work with Instar Technologies. Please join me in welcoming Stella Enhancho as she shares her insight for embracing growth, change, and new opportunity. Stella, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Hank. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Can I just get a quick confirmation that you can see my screen? Yes, awesome. Wonderful. Well, hello, everyone. I am so honored to be here with you all today. And first of all, thank you to Western Governors University for having me and also providing, the opportunity. I think there's something to be said of an institution that is providing, advanced education for working professionals, but also guiding them on their career path and their career journey, such as career conversations. So thank you again for having me, and I'm super excited to be here. And as Hank mentioned, my name is Stella Ihenacho, and today we're going to be talking about embracing growth, change, and new opportunities. I did hear earlier was breaking barriers, and I'm more around beyond barriers. What's next, right? And I want you to know that while this might have some inspiration behind it. It's really a conversation around strategies, a conversation around mindset, it's a conversation around intentional action. And my goal here is really to help you go from, either being feeling stuck to just confidently moving forward in your career, in your personal life, or your professional life. And the ways that I plan to do that today really is helping you and we having that conversation around how do we identify and reframe any professional or personal barriers that might be holding you back. How do we learn to, apply an agile mindset in navigating uncertainty? How do we develop, those strategies when we're faced with challenges? Because you and I know that challenges are literally new every day. And then how then do we have that personalized action plan to move us forward in our next steps? Again, whether it be education, career, or personal life. Because I'm fully aware that everyone here is, wearing different hats and doing different things. And so our challenges are really irrespective of the hats that we wear. And so again, these are the ways that I plan for us to go through our conversation today. So a little bit about me. Now, this picture here, I haven't really shown it in so many places this way, apart from one place. But it's quite, it's just really wonderful when you go back and see the transition. And when they say the glow up is real, I think that's what, is said, nowadays. But a little bit about me. I'm an immigrant, an African immigrant all the way from Nigeria. Um, but also I wear multiple hats as well. I'm a mom. I'm a career professional. I'm a woman in tech and leadership. I'm a woman who is passionate about immigrant advocacy. Belonging in the workplace, representing underrepresented minorities in the workplace. I'm a woman who's passionate about ensuring that people have access to information so that they can have better choices and live just better lives overall, right? But just a little bit about my journey because, and the reason why I'm talking about, the hats that I wear, because again, I'm very cognizant of the fact that everyone on this call is wearing multiple hats. And so a bit about just my journey. So when I arrived in the United States about a decade ago, I came with a bachelor's and a master's, and when we talk about literally facing barriers, I remember that I was told that I should not even think about working in corporate. Like Don't even think about that. Don't even think that you can work as a project manager. Don't think that your skills are transferable because, first of all, you are an immigrant. Second of all, you have so many biases working against you. And the funny thing about this is sometimes you think that barriers are from people that are not close to you, or these thoughts are from people that are not close to you. But these were really feedback from family. So what do you do when you're facing barriers from people that are really close to you? That's a whole different ballgame, right? And so this were advice that I got from family. I was advised to do some jobs, some odd jobs here and there, which again, those jobs are honorable, but just understanding that this advice, this feedback were from a place of either fear or limiting perspectives from these people, or also because they are also battling barriers, and that barriers has shifted their perspective on how they see things. And now, so we see how barriers can literally become generational if we're not careful, right? But also, I mean, at that point in time, I didn't know the lay of the land as much. I was also experiencing first of all, culture shock, to professional shock, to trying to integrate into a new system. There were so many unknowns, right? So many things not known, so many steps to take in. And I know that if I do ask open question here, is there anyone who feels like they're also experiencing unknowns ahead of them? I probably would get a show of hand. And one thing I also want to say is that I really want our session to be interactive. So I might be asking you to do certain things and put certain things in the chat for me, okay? And so if you know that you're experiencing unknowns, please feel free to put it in the chat as well. But at that point in time, over 10 years ago, even till now, still experiencing unknowns, right? And sometimes we just assume that these things are part of our experiences, but are they really part of the experiences, or are these barriers really consequences of a system? And now that question is open to the jury. But back then, with my bachelor's and my master's, I remember my attempt in trying to get a job and trying to apply for roles. I'll be tossed from one recruiter to another recruiter. Someone thinks I'm underqualified, someone thinks I'm overqualified. And I'm like, should I be removing my MBA from my resume, or should I be leaving it in? It was very confusing. It kept literally, I think it kept me asking questions like, what part of me should I be removing so that I can be given a chance to prove that all of me is good enough? And these are the things that we face every time when we're trying to apply for jobs, apply for roles. Now, most time is how much of myself should I show up with that wouldn't become a liability, but can be considered an asset, right? And so from being underemployed, I had to be underemployed, to having opportunities pass me by. I definitely faced barriers that were very insurmountable at that point in time. And the thing about barriers, I would say, is no matter what level you're in, you're going to be encountering barriers. And as I was preparing for this, I realized, barriers shape shift. Like at every inflection point of your journey, from starting over, for example, from me in a new country to getting a job just to make ends meet, to wanting more in my career, to balancing motherhood and work, to raising a family, to wanting to get certifications to be better, to wanting to expand in my area of expertise and experience, to perhaps also being the only African immigrant in my current place of work, in my department, and being one of two Black women in the data and AI department. Of course, barriers are seen every day, they are faced every day, they just shape shift. But one thing I've learned, and my goal here is to pass that message across even today, is barriers really don't define us. They're a marker for an opportunity for growth. And it's how we respond to them that is important. So today, I wanted to share not just what I've learned across my journey, because again, barriers are every day. They show up everywhere. They just shift. But what are the practical tools that we can apply immediately, right? That we can start applying regardless of what barriers that we're facing. And like I mentioned, if you're ready to learn these practical tools, please feel free to put yes in the chat as I keep going. So make sure that everyone is still following along with me. All right. So going around just, barriers that we all face, whether it be personal or professionally. The thing about, also one thing about barriers, is they don't discriminate. So they show up in all parts of our lives in different ways. So whether you're a student here, of course, maybe you're either returning to school, maybe you're taking a new program, or whether you're a career professional who's looking to pivot, whether you are a parent here juggling your education, your family, your dreams, your ideas, or whether you're like an immigrant like me trying to acclimatize in a new land, right? Or a career professional who's trying to determine what does next look like for me? Like, what does next from here look like for me? What does the next career path look like for me? The landscape is evolving so fast, like AI, different versions, different updates, what does next look like for me, right? So again, barriers just part of the journey. And I put them in two categories here. External barriers and internal barriers. And so when we think about external barriers, these are the ones that we all can see and we all sometimes can put a definition to. So lack of time, lack of resources, financial constraint. Maybe, you are school and tuition fee feels like a mountain, and you're figuring out how do I make this payment, or systemic challenges, not seeing people like you in a space that you want to go into, or seeing people like you in a space that you want to go into, but it's hard for you to reach out to them or for them to connect with you, or you're facing biases that are telling you like you don't belong here. These are all systemic challenges, or even family responsibilities. Because I can remember trying to take some certification exams with my young kids. It was a disaster at that point in time. Those are actually external barriers, right? Or access. Sometimes access as well is a challenge. Said the biggest challenge sometimes is simply not knowing who to ask or where to start from. And quick story about access. And this is one of the reasons why, I'm very passionate about providing systemic solutions to barriers like this, because especially for those who are either, minorities, underrepresented, um, sometimes it's hard for you to figure out where do I start asking my questions from and who am I asking those questions, from. And my mind goes back as well to when I came into the country, and I was getting those thoughts back and forth around was I overqualified, underqualified, or just rightly qualified. I remember then that there was someone that I knew within my network who introduced me to a startup founder. Now, when I got into this role, I don't know if anyone has worked in startup. Well, I'm sure there are really great startups that have really great benefits and great compensation. But this one was nothing like that at all. We're not getting paid. I remember, sometimes driving down to the office space, and this is vivid memories, stuck on the road. Literally, my car stopped because there was no gas in the car. It was like that. But whenever I think about that moment, while reflect on the challenge that was in that moment, my mind goes back to the experience though that I had in that startup. I had experience. I was exposed to like how to build financial product. I was exposed to agile as a way of work. I was exposed to different, technology roles. I was exposed to working with people from all over the world. And so to me, that was access, probably not in a way that would be ideal, but sometimes we literally have to create our own access so that we can, get the information that we need to then make better choices, and also that we can look back and provide a better way for those who are coming just right behind us, right? So I wanted to just share that story real quick around access. And the other kind of barriers that we also face too are also internal barriers. And sometimes these ones are silent ones, right? And they're actually more powerful sometimes, actually. You could talk about like the fear of failure. What if I try this? What if I enroll in this program? What if I apply for this job and I fall flat and I fail? Or the imposter syndrome, like who am I to even think I can do this? Who am I to think I can get into this role or apply for this or juggle all of this at the same time? Or perfectionism, trying to figure everything out, trying to get all of our ducks in a row, before we even start, or sometimes comparison, right? Looking at others who are probably ahead of us, and instead of being inspired, all of a sudden we begin to get a bit intimidated. And so all of these things are also internal barriers, because you can have access, but internal barrier can also hold you back. So there's that, a conflict between external barriers and internal barriers. But when it comes to internal barriers, something I want to share here real quick is every single person that you've admiring or you've admired really have had some of these thoughts. Every day, like the same way I say barrier shape shift. When you climb up the ladder, whatever you're going, either climbing up or going sideways, whatever it is, right? There's some certain sort of barriers that you have to face. Um, and so even when we break through the external barriers, like I mentioned, when you get that job and you're working, you still have to break through that internal barrier of I'm going to put my hand up when questions are being asked. I'm going to show up fully. right? With my accent, with everything, with what I know, I'm going to speak on my wins and not feel like I am bragging, right? And because I did the work, so why shouldn't I be proud of the work that I've done? I'm going to say yes to stretch assignments and not being afraid to fail. So there is that balance between that external barrier and internal barrier. And I know I've been speaking for quite a couple of minutes, but I want to pause right now and give you a moment because I want you to think about one barrier, either be external or internal, that you see standing in your way right now. And I want you can write it down somewhere on a piece of paper, which I hope you do have something like that to write, or you can put in the chat, right? I want you to be able to think about it. I want you to be able to visualize that barrier. Because when you think about that barrier, then I want you to be able to see that that barrier is also an opportunity that is hidden, right? Because how we respond to barriers, of course, is going to lead to what's possible for us because barriers are just not stop signs. They're an opportunity that's hidden. So just I'm going to pause you a little bit for you to think about what is that one barrier, whether it be external barrier or internal barrier. For me, when I came was access. Access was a challenge. I didn't have a lot of time to, because especially when I started, raising a family, lack of resources, systemic challenges, all those were actually barriers that I also faced and also still face, but in different ways, right? And then talk about the internal barriers as well. So what barriers perhaps are you facing and you want to share? Please feel free to put it in the chat too. All right, so now we're going to move a little bit further into barriers are there. Barriers are never going to go away. They're always going to be there. But then what else do we do with them? So just almost like you've seen this thing, what am I going to do with you? And this is where we talk about reframing barriers because our conversation is all around embracing growth, right? Change and opportunities. And so now that we've thought about what barriers are in my way, right? The next step is so then how can I reframe this barrier where it's no longer a wall, it's a bridge. It's not a wall. Is that I can climb on it, I can step through it, or I can drive through it or power through it. And that always comes down to how we see them. All right. And so this part is talking about, like, for example, something can be an obstacle. So the access to opportunity that I had, that I didn't have was an obstacle, but it was also an opportunity for growth for me, right? Not in the way everyone else would define growth for themselves, but what does growth mean for me, right? What does growth mean for me, right? So that obstacle to opportunity for growth. Or for example, something you're lacking something, right? I don't have something, then what can I leverage? I don't have this. What can I leverage? So instead of focusing on what you lack, what can you leverage? Time, money, connection, asking questions. You are in a community, you are in an association, you're on LinkedIn. What are the things that I can leverage with what I have right now? What can I start doing creatively? Can I volunteer? Right? Can I build experience by something I tell my students, you can get experience by osmosis. Can I be in an association of people who are already doing the things that I want to do in terms of role and job and all of that, and learn from them when they're having conversation and joining their webinars and listen to what they're saying that they're experiencing in their day to day. Right. The third thing again, another way you can reframe a barrier is, all right, I'm stuck. All right, so can we move from stuck to how can we pivot? What is another way forward? Um how can I move from here? And I have real life examples to share about all of these things. If I'm thinking about being stuck to pivoting, I remember when I was trying to take a particular certification exam over and over again. And for the life of me, I just wasn't getting the cutoff mark. And I know one of the reasons was because I kept on arguing with the answers. Don't even ask me why. I felt like this answer was wrong. So this answer was wrong. And so I would take this exam and I want to pass it because again, I'm fighting with the answer that I think they think is right and I think is somewhere something else. And then I realized that I needed to pivot, right? I needed to figure out another way forward. And I was able to figure out why I kept on arguing with those other exam body and found another certification that was more in alignment with how I was thinking. And when I took that exam, I passed it once. And that was literally the open door so far from my career growth to this very moment. Right. And so if there's something that you're stuck in right now, it's all right. So let me pause, let me reassess. What am I either doing differently? What should I change? Or am I backing up the wrong three? Should I just change the three that I'm climbing on? And so that's going to lead me to, something that I want to share with you, which is introducing you to agility, agile mindset, agile principles, all of that. I'm all about agility, agile as a way of work, agile as a way of life. I typically would joke and say that, hey, if you hang around me for such a long time, I will bring you to the agile part of the world. But for those who probably don't know what agile is, I want to ask that when you hear the word agile, what comes to your mind? You can put it in the chat. When you hear the word agile, what comes to your mind? We talked about external and internal barriers. We talked about reframing barriers. Now, I want to give you a tool that has transformed not only businesses and technology, but also transforming how you can navigate whatever barrier that you're stuck in, and it will take you beyond barriers, helping you to embrace that change. And to me, honestly, is agility. Agile as a way of work, agile as a way of course, building products, software, services, a way of working. And the core of it is the agile methodology, right, emerged in the early 2000s, right? And it was formalized by something called the Agile Manifesto in 2001. And at that point in time, people and teams that were building software were tired of the way they were building it. They felt it was so rigid. They felt they had a lot of barriers. They felt like it was very traditional. And so they're thinking about what other way can we build this where we are more flexible, where we are collaborating, where we don't have to know all of the answers, but we can know enough to start and move forward, right? And so that's where agility came into play. And now agile isn't just for tech teams anymore. It's really a way of thinking and approaching challenges. And most of its roots is around adaptability, continuous learning, progress over perception, over perfection. I love what I'm saying in the chat. So all of these things are part of that agile, mindset, agile principles, and agile values. And so I want to share that with you as well. And I'm seeing what is being said in the chat around agility is around willingness to be open-minded and learn. Absolutely. Quick and being able to adjust on the fly. Yes. You're moldable, you're receptive to feedback, and you're resourceful. All of these things, literally tech teams use the same principles, right, in how they build their product, in how they work. If we think about the best products right now, or the companies that are going to be sustainable, they need those mindset. They need to be open-minded. They need to be able to learn. They need to be quick and be able to adjust on the fly. I mean, COVID was a disruptor. So many things that AI is a disruptor. And so you can't be stuck in the old way of working, because then you have to be able to be agile in how you work and how you think. And so I'm bringing it into then our conversation today is how then do we go beyond those barriers? Because we can bring the same principles into how we work, into how we think, into facing barriers. And so now we're making this practical. And um, when my mind goes back to just even the work that I do day to day as an agile expert, when I work with data teams or AI teams, I've seen how teams have come together before, where from scratch they don't even know what they're building. They are surrounded with technical issues. They don't have no clear roadmap. They have a lot of unknowns. They have a lot of lack of understanding of the technical domain area and all of those things. But these same principles that I'm sharing with you today are the ones that they have had to apply on a daily basis. And they don't apply it perfectly, but they are consistent in the application. And we've been able to see them, release something, deliver something, make progress step by step. And so I don't see why we cannot apply the same principles. And so I put just four right here. So number one, and they're taking notes right here, thinking about how do you apply this on with anything that is like a barrier that is stuck right now with you. So going back to our first activity around what is that barrier that is literally in your way right now. So think about the first one is, how can I start before I'm ready? And so talk about iteration, or we can call it sprints, right? So starting before you're ready is, you don't need the full plan. Sometimes we want to get the full thing before we start. How can we start small? How can we start, with one action step? And we start with that one action step, and then we learn from it. Now we have data to make better decisions the next one. That's literally how we do it for our agile teams as well. Is we don't have to have the whole roadmap or the whole the whole roadmap is wonderful, but guess what? We're also aware that the world is changing so fast that the roadmap we have for the end of the year might change before we even get into Q3, right? So how can we start before we're ready? And there's so many ways you can do this. So for example, I remember like when we launched the African Immigrant Collective, which is a nonprofit I'm a part of, one of our goals was to definitely build our community. And so sitting down thinking about, who are we going to reach out to, how are we going to build this community, what platform are we going to use? No, we literally started with a paid community first, and then we got feedback from people that not caused us to pivot into more like a free community where anyone that's an African immigrant in diaspora could join. Now, if we're waiting to get all of the data that we needed, we would not have built anything up until now. Number one. Number two, your typical iPhone is an example. There's no almighty iPhone. We the users are giving them feedback on what they want to see, on what we want to see. They're literally predicting our behaviors by our usage, and then they create another version and put what they're, what we are predicting for them on there, and then we buy it, right? And so thinking about how can you start before you're ready, right? How can you start before you're ready? Number two, how can we learn fast, right? So learning fast, going back to we take a first step, we learn from that experience, and then we learn and we move on from that. And so seeing failure as, all right, so can I get facts? It's like facts gathering. Because if you don't try anything, you would never know anything. Failure just really means that you did make an attempt and you tried something and you have data to make a different decision or to evolve from the decision that you made before in the past, right? And so, for example, maybe you are taking a course and you feel overwhelmed, or and all of that is, all right, so what do I need to simplify? Do I need to adjust my plan instead of quitting, right? How can I be flexible? How can I respond to change? Things are not as I planned it to be, so how can I pivot? How can I be flexible? The third principle I want to share here is around progress over perfection, and so around continuous improvement. But by the time everything is perfect, I remember someone saying it means that it's already too late, right? So perfection definitely delays action. I would say this: if you're applying for jobs, you applying for job is an art, basically, right? Because you never I always say this, like there are certain things that you can control and things that you cannot control. You can control making sure that your resume represents you in the best possible way. You can control your elevator pitch. You can control how you show for the interview. You can control doing your research, right, about the company. You can control doing your research on who's going to be interviewing you. You can control making sure that you prepare for your interviews, that you understand your career history and your career journey, and the roles that you're applying for. um and and you just know about the company, and you have your questions ready for who's going to be interviewing you when they ask you, do you have any question? But what you cannot control is what side of the bed did the interviewer wake up on? Are they on holiday? Did an internal hire happen? Right? Did the budget for that role all of a sudden is no longer available? Did the company change their mind around where they wanted to move their funds to? Those are the things that you can't control, right? And so, as I always say, if you're waiting for the perfect resume and the perfect pitch and everything to apply for a role, you are kind of like wasting time, because you have to improve your interview muscle by making progress, and in that way you're getting perfect, if that makes sense, right? I hope that helps. But that was just a good example that came to my mind as I was speaking. And then last but not the least, around collaboration. And so I would say, yes, this is a wonderful circle that you're in, wonderful institution that you're in, probably your classmates, your lecturers, the everyone here to support you. The collaboration is so important, right? Because again, no one can do it alone. So finding mentors, finding people who can hold you accountable, finding communities, people who can support you and asking questions. And I think you being here definitely is key, that you are collaborating with institution to pour into your career journey. You're reaching out to your peers, having study groups, holding yourselves accountable. If I think about collaboration from my personal journey, one of the time when I was for example, I collaborated with a startup founder to work for free, right? To me, that is collaboration. Now, that relationship between me and her is still very, very vibrant up until now, and she has kept on pouring into me even since then, right? I see her as a mentor, right? And she holds me accountable, and I see how her startup has evolved over time, even if when my path has gone a different way and her path has gone a different way. Going back to even collaboration, I had a former manager years ago, and when she left my department to go to a whole different department, I make sure that I kept our recurring one-on-one, because I wanted to still um, keep that relationship, so that she could still be almost like an unofficial mentor. Because sometimes we think that collaboration has to be physical, like you have to see the person has to know you. You can get mentorship virtually. You can be part of community and get mentorship. And so, well, this person, I've never met her actually, but I see her recurring one-on-one with her, and I always bring her up to speed with the work that I'm doing, and she's been able to advocate for me in different ways as well. So how can you then apply these principles, right, into whatever it is right now that is a barrier. What can you start with before you're ready, or start with instead of waiting for waiting for everything to be, in line, or all the ducks in the row, right? Number one. Number two, what can you adapt? What barrier is in your way right now because of the fact that you're holding on to something that was a former version of what you wanted to achieve. Look at the small statement on my slide here. It says, be stubborn about your goal, but be flexible about your method. Is there a barrier right now that is from a place of you not wanting to be flexible, or a barrier right now that maybe I need to be flexible about this. Maybe I need to see this a little bit differently, right? And then continuous improvement. Again, it's continuous improvement and it's improvement. There's never an end to continuously improving. Everyone is continuously improving, and that should definitely be a lifestyle, because we can never get to the end of everything. We have to keep evolving, keep learning, keep stretching. And so the only way you can continuously improve is actually to try and move on from there. And then asking for help. If there's someone right now who you know has the answer to whatever it is that is in your way right now, is there someone right now who you know you can reach out to, who within their circle of influence, right, might have that support that you need? If you never ask, the answer will always be no. If you ask, there's a 50% chance the answer will be yes. So what's it going to take? And even when the answer is no, guess what? You're no longer thinking, oh, I wonder what the answer would be if I'd asked. So asking is such a skill, because you never know. And people are open to helping, open to supporting. People are going to people's LinkedIn boxes right now to say, hey, can I have a virtual coffee time with you? I want to know more about your career. What is the worst that can happen? Now think about what the best that can happen. And the best that can happen is that you hear a yes. I can assure you of that. All right. So again, agility is not also about speed. We're not trying to just, speed. It's about really steadiness. It's about adaptability, about progress, no perfection, and about being willing to adjust and keep going. And so now we've covered, some agile principles that we can use these principles regardless of any barrier that's in our way. But so these principles need to be put to work. They are only principles in isolation, but when we apply them, then they become something. In as we apply these principles, as we're, taking it one step at a time, we are making that progress over perfection, we are continuously improving, and we're asking for help. There, there's also, the truth of the fact that the barriers might not get easier, because again, remember the shift, right? they move from one thing to one thing. You might get a yes today, tomorrow it might be another no. So what then do you do at that point in time? How then do you navigate all of these things, right? Almost like, can I just get a break here, right? How then do we continue to evolve even when all of these things happen? Knowing your why, right? Knowing your why. For example, for me, my why, of course, are my kids, my family. My why is knowing that there are other people like me who are also coming through the system, trying to get into the land, and trying to, find their footing. What does that why? What does your why look like for you? If I go back to when I tried to do the certification multiple times and I didn't pass, right? My why then was to get a better job, right? I needed to get a better job. I needed a chance. I felt like the certification was going to be at least almost like a door opener in a little way, but back to my experience, right? My wins, think about what my small wins were then, was I realized that, okay, you know what, maybe the ones that I was taking before the certifications weren't suited to for me, weren't suited for how I am or how I think when it comes to leadership. Maybe I look for something else that's different, right? And when it came to pausing, not quitting, I did pause, because for how many times I could take a certification and you're not passing through, like, okay, so something has to change, something has to be different here. And then I was able to map the right one to my personality and to my career plan as well. And then finding your people, my people there were my support system, right? My family, people that I knew that were also in the field, and just really just my family being my support system. And for me, being able to see that sucks a bit. So I was able to visualize, like, what would my life look like if I get certification, or I get into this role, right? Or I'm able to bring something back to the family. So all of these things are things that we have to really keep top of mind for us, even as we are facing these barriers, breaking through barriers, breaking through them, going beyond barriers, and embracing growth. Because I will say this: if you're going to embrace growth, you have to embrace barriers. If you're going to embrace change and new opportunities, you would definitely have to embrace barriers. And so visualizing that finish line, right? Just an activity I'll give you all to do. You can do it now, maybe later, or make a note of it. It's closing your eyes and seeing yourself already on the other side of whatever it is that you want to get into. And sometimes, when you don't know where you're going to, you're not prepared for the barriers in your way. You're not prepared for the obstacles. And some obstacles you can never be prepared for, but at least you have an idea of where you're trying to get into, correct? And so visualizing, what does that other side look like for me? What does that next look like for me? What would my life look like if I overcome this challenge? Um, because visualization, literally gives you energy for perseverance. It gives you energy for, what, I'm gonna sit on this one. I'm gonna sit on this challenge. I'm gonna power through it. I'm gonna make sure that I find a way out because I can see what the next looks like for me. And as I'm really kind of like wrapping this up a little bit so that I can make sure that we're following through, we've talked about again just what barriers are, the internal and external barriers, right? Talked about reframing barriers, so very important. Talked about what those agile principles are that we can apply regardless of what barriers that we're facing, and we were talking about just when things get harder or when barriers show up again in different ways, what are the things that we have to keep at top of mind. And so I want us to move into action now. I want us to be able to leave with an action plan. What does an action plan look like, right? What does next look like right now for us, right? And the first thing I want us to do for sure here is, if you already have your notebook out, or you don't have one yet, I want you to be able to open that up. Or if you have your notes app on your phone, pull that up. And why this is important is, again, the principles will not work if nothing is put behind them. The methodology, the mindset would not work. The steps would not work if we're not actually attaching something to it. Like, I mean, every day, for example, myself, I've been in places. I mean, actually, quite recently, right? Being in rooms where I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. I mean, I'll give you another example. I think a couple of maybe like a year or 2 years ago, I remember that I was kind of like feeling a certain way. I was feeling like I'm not giving new value. I'm not delivering something new. I don't feel like I'm adding the value that I know that I'm capable of adding the value in this place. That felt like a barrier, honestly, because it was almost like very conflicting with the kind of person that I was. Like, I was thinking, okay, I need to be doing something. I need to be adding value. I can see that there are issues going on, but how do I begin to provide solutions in these places? And then I had two choices. I could have easily just been like, you know what, I'm going to be fine what I'm already doing and what I've always done. But the other choice, which I ended up going with, was I started inserting myself in the different calls that I knew were problem calls. So people were coming to talk about issues that they were facing, listening from an outside perspective, and began to insert myself in solutions. So maybe someone in the call would say, okay, we're having this challenge, who's going to take ownership for this, or things like that. I started inserting myself there. Now, and that opened up a whole new pipeline, in my opinion, for me, thinking about something that I didn't have expertise in, but now I'm learning. Now I'm forcing myself to learn. Now I'm forcing people to literally reach out to me to say, where we are with this. I'm holding myself accountable and I'm delivering value. Right. So again, barriers are different ways, because to me, that was an external barrier where I didn't find access to be able to provide value. And I feel like I needed to do that. But also, yes, I did have some internal barriers with, what if you all want me to work on something? I don't have no knowledge about what this is. But to me, that was an opportunity to learn something that I never had experience with. So it was a challenge for me. So I want you to, at this point in time, pull out your notebook or pull out your note app on your phone, right? And think about questions around, and this is where honesty comes into play. Is, what do I really want? Right? Like, what do I want? What do I want right now? Because and there are many things that you want, and so many things might pop up in your mind. But I want you to just pick one. What do I really want right now? Do I want to get a job? That's the only thing that's on my mind right now. Do I want to be able to maybe pass my examinations? Do I want to be able to find a career that would give me the flexibility that I need to raise my family? Am I working on a book? Do I just want to start my own business? You know, yeah, so taking that deep breath and thinking about, what do I really want? Know what people think of you, right? But what do you want? Like, what is important to you, right? Is it, again, like I said, is it getting that job, starting a business? Is it getting a promotion? Maybe you're working and you're at school as well. Is it investing in your personal growth? Are you trying to pivot into a new field, right? So Just write it down. No doubts, no filters, just clarity. I'm just going to pause for like 15 seconds just in case you're writing those down. All right. Then what is holding you back? What is holding you back? What is the barrier that is standing in your way? Very similar to the first question that I asked. Um, is it what is stopping you? Like, what is the barrier in your way? Is it time? Lack of time? This one is a very, very common one, actually. People want to do so many things, but they don't have the time to do it. Is it money? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it lack of access, systemic challenges? Um, is it lack of confidence? Write it down and name it. It's very important that we write it down and name it, because when we name our barriers, you're able to put a face. You know how sometimes if your enemy doesn't have no face, you don't know who you're fighting. But we want to be able to put a face to what the barriers are, because when we put a face to it or a name to it, you're able to take away the power that they have to control us. Because now we can name it. Now we know how to address it. Mm. Now you know how to address it, right? All right. The third thing I want you to do right now is, what is that small action that you can take in the next 7 days? Now, this might feel familiar, like, okay, maybe I do 7 days planning, or 1 day planning, 1 month planning, 1 quarter planning. And maybe you have a notebook that has so many things that you've written down you're going to do in the next 7 days, and you've actually not done anything. At this point in time, that is you having to, you definitely need to like think about self accountability. Is how can I say that I want to get somewhere? Then I need to take accountability for that journey. And that's where that support system comes into play, because everyone is so different, right? And so support systems are so important as well to help us hold us ourselves accountable. And so if you've not done this part, just think about, what is that small action I can take in the next 7 days? Right? Because this is the most important part. You don't have to change everything today. You don't have to change everything today. Like I'm saying, like, okay, so I want to get into maybe leadership position, for example, and I have a known disability. Well, tomorrow might not be the day you get into that leadership position, but what can I do today to guide me up in that step, even with the known disability, for example, right? So what is that one thing I can do the next 7 days or 24 hours, depending on the kind of person that you are? You might be a 24 hours kind of person, maybe it's 1 week kind of person that will move you towards your goal. For example, it could be sending one email. It could be finding someone with a known disability who is in leadership position, reaching out to them and making that connection. It could be updating your resume, right? You could be saying, okay, I don't have experience, but I want to get into a field. Well, who do I know in that field? How can I search for people in that field? And having some conversation with them, or joining their association, a free association, or joining their free webinars and learning from that experience and making that connection. What is that one thing that you can do in the next 7 days, right? That can move you forward in that direction. You could be reaching out to a mentor, someone who's mentored you before in the past, maybe you've lost track of, well, find them, send them an email, thank them for what they've done, right? Or you could be blocking out time for reflection. It doesn't have to be big. The main thing here has to be intentional. You know, I remember reflecting, about some of my activities and my tasks. I'm asking myself, if someone was to sit down and audit all the things you've done today, is it really in alignment with where you say you want to go to? Is it really in alignment with the person you say you want to become? That's very simple. If everyone was to look at the activities that we do on a daily basis, is it going to be a mirror of what is leading us in the direction of our goals, right? That's a good question. For example, someone wants to write a book. If all the things you do every day is around maybe scrolling or maybe reading or just, whatever other activities that are actually good activities, but they're good, but are they needed for that time? And are they also pointing us in that direction of writing? So someone might be reading, that could actually be, information gathering to help you in your writing. So my point here is, it doesn't have to be a big action, it has to just be intentional. Now look at what you wrote down. You're reading this. This is how you break barriers. Honestly, this is how you go beyond barriers. This is how you embrace change and growth. Is one small intentional move at a time. And remembering that you don't have to do everything at once. Is embracing change, embracing growth, embracing new opportunity, because you're taking that one intentional move at a time. And when I go back to just agile principles, the thing about agile teams and scrum teams actually is they never like when we work on something, that's the reason why we have sprint reviews, is that we showcase the work we've done in the past 2 weeks worth of sprint to stakeholders, to end users, to expect feedback from them, so that when we go back, we're now building on that feedback. That's the same thing, right? You might have a whole long-term goal, which is wonderful and planned, but by the time you take one intentional step, now you're realizing, so for example, the person who wants to probably want to write a book, or maybe the person who is trying to get a job but doesn't have experience, right? Maybe you have a conversation with someone who's in that space that you want to get into, and then you realize, oh wow, I didn't know that I needed a certification, or I didn't know that I needed a skill, or maybe this career path that I thought I wanted to get to actually is not in alignment with my values. Now you have information, right, that you didn't have before because you took one intentional step. And so as we wrap up, I want you to just commit to one action. That's just it. When you commit to one action that you're going to take after today, you realize that you're actually embracing growth. You are literally causing that ripple effect of growth and change. And even in agile teams, again, there's a reason why we have scrum masters. Scrum masters, for those who practice scrum framework, they hold their teams accountable to their goals, because it's very easy to get distracted. And so distractions are going to be there. But then what is that one intentional action that you can take today that will cause you to embrace that growth? Right. And if you know what your action is, please, please, please share it in the chat. Like I said, it could be sending that email, making that phone call, signing up for that course, or just believing that you can do this, right? Whatever it is, and just committing to it and taking that step. And as I wrap up, I want to just, literally just reiterate this, that barriers, they don't define us. They're just really just opportunities for growth. Our action does define us. And we've talked a bit about barriers today, a lot about barriers, those that stand in our way and those that are still unseen. But I also want you to remember that barriers will come, doubt will come, uncertainty will come, and that is a good thing, because it means that you're standing in a place that has opportunity for you to expand on. The only reason why we're comfortable with certain things right now is because we stayed even when we're uncomfortable. We learned about certain things. We knew certain things. Now you are in another space that feels uncomfortable, that you're seeing barriers. Now there's another opportunity for you to say, okay, you know what? They don't define me. It's how I respond to them. It's the actions that I take. And that power really is in your action, right? That power is in your action. If you think about people that you admire, perhaps, or you look up to, they do face obstacles every single day. And so I want to leave you all with this word from Arthur Ashe, the first Black man to win Wimbledon, the US Open, and the Australian Open. And he said, you start where you are, right? Use what you have. So what do you have? And do what you can. So start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And don't wait for that perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. You're already ready to begin. And I want you all to just start from where you are. As I'm speaking to you, it's also a reminder to myself. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Stella. That was an excellent presentation. I have personally have learned a lot from your expert wisdom of words, and I've been taking notes the whole time. So I want to give everyone the opportunity. Oh, a lot of hand applause going on. I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. We have about 9 minutes left, so if we do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'll have you come off mute to ask your question directly. I know we had a question in the chat before. I think you answered it, but I'll just ask it again to see if you have any additional. How do you break into a career field with little to no experience in the field other than a degree?
So when people say other than a degree, I'm sorry, in my opinion, a degree is an experience, an academic experience. And so I would say that sometimes we undervalue what we already have because we haven't seen the value. So it's how we change our perspective about certain things. First of all, your degree is already an academic experience. Now, how do we actually break into that career path? Is there someone in that career space that you can reach out to? Are there opportunities for you to volunteer? Right? Is there opportunity for you to create your own body of work? Is there an opportunity for you to learn by immersion, but learn from other people, right? Thinking outside of the traditional way of just getting into a corporate office or getting that corporate offer. What other ways can you build that experience and hold on to that experience? Some people say that their volunteer experience is not an experience. I say, who told you that? You did the work, you built that experience, right? And so there are multiple ways that you can, outside of the box, leverage and build that experience plus your degree. So not other than your degree. I want you to say including my degree, because that is experience as well. I hope that helps.
Yes, that was excellently put there. Um, we got a lot of thank yous in the chat from Danielle, from Robert, Teresa. Um, if you do have a question, I am going to send out this recording tomorrow to your email. So you will receive a recording. You'll also receive a short survey, which is 1 or 2 questions. Please answer those questions just about the survey and what your thoughts about the session. But I'll also include Stella's contact information, which she did place on her PowerPoint. But I'll include that if you would like to connect with her and stay connected to see some of the amazing things that she is currently doing in her professional career as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I don't think we have any additional questions. So I am going to wrap the session up by thanking Stella again for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and for everyone on this call as well, the question and the engagement in the chat. I truly appreciate it. It's been a great time. Thank you.
All right, you provided a lot of takeaways for us, and a lot of action items as well, if I may add, that we all can work on to get better at breaking some of those barriers that you mentioned and that we are facing today in our professional career. Remember, we do have some other sessions going on this today. So if you would like, go ahead and sign up for those sessions. But also remember that CPD is here to help you with your resumes, your mock interviews, or anything else to help you land that next job or transition into your next career. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and be sure to check out some of the other sessions we have. Have a great day.
Everyone.